In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Graphene workflows, which is a new bit of functionality that's actually built into Graphene. And just so the person who's watching this is aware, we're relatively early in the development of the Graphene workflow engine. And so some of the things that I show you today may actually be a little bit different if you're watching this at a later date. But here I am looking at a vanilla Graphene instance running locally here. But if we want to get started by creating some workflows, the first thing we're going to do is hop into the admin panel and go over to workflows. And you'll notice here that I don't actually have any workflows built yet, so we're going to start by creating a new workflow. Now, I'm going to call this initial workflow example approval workflow. And the reason I'm going to do that is because while there's a whole bunch of things that you can do with workflows, one of the most common things and one of the most basic things that we can do is just have a simple approval process. And that would be, for example, where you have somebody fill out a form, it goes to another person, they can either approve or reject it, and then it goes back to that initial person telling them what happened. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So we'll go ahead and save that, and we're going to dive into this thing. And you'll notice that there's a few tabs across the top here, but for the most part, what we're going to focus on today is the forms and the flow. So the form here is actually going to be the form that the person's going to be filling out. That's collecting the information. And the workflow, this is what's defining how things progress through different states as the data moves around and where the approvals are taken. So we start here. We've already got an origin state here. And this is going to be the state that we're in when the person is first initially submitting the form. So we're going to want to create a new state here called maybe pending approval. So let's do that now. And the pending approval state is going to be where the workflow ends up after somebody has submitted the form out of the origin state, and it's going to go into that pending approval state. So let's go ahead and build that. We're going to create an action that the person can perform once they've submitted the data. So they're in the origin state here. They click on the submit action, and it ends up in this pending approval state. So that looks good. And when we're in the pending approval state, though, we then need to either have it go to approved or rejected. So let's create those states as well. So we'll have approved. And I'm just going to make approved be a closed state because really when something has been approved, it's really done. The workflow is completed, and so we're going to call it closed. And I'm also going to create one called rejected, and that will also be a closed state. So we'll go ahead and save that. And what I wanted to do then is, so we have the pending approval state, and we need to create a few actions that the person can take, one either which will approve it and another which will reject it. So let's do that now. Let's create a approve action. Okay, and this one's going to take us to the approve state. All right, that looks good. And let's see here if I go into the pending approval, and let's create another action here, and this one is going to be called reject. And this one is going to take us into the rejected state. And let's make this one have a different colored button here. It's going to go to rejected. Okay, and I think that's about right. So we've got this origin state. It takes us to pending approval. You can either approve or reject, and that takes us to approved or rejected. The last thing I'm going to put on here, and this isn't really strictly necessary, but if we want to give the person the option of maybe resubmitting the form, we can have a resubmit action on the rejected state. So we'll put that in here now. Resubmit. We'll have it fill out, we'll show them the form, and it currently has us taking it back to the origin state. We don't really want to do that. Let's have it go to the back to the pending approval state. There we go. All right, so we're all set. We've got our workflow here. We're pretty much done, with the exception of we haven't actually assigned any responsibilities at any of these states. So let's go ahead and do that now. When it's in the origin state, we really just want to have it be assigned to the person who filled out the form, so the owner. When we're in the pending approval state, we could have this assigned to a group of people who are going to take the action of approving or rejecting, or we can have it assigned to an individual. And for the sake of this particular demonstration, I'm just going to have it assigned to me in here. We'll just have it hard-coded and have it assigned directly to me, Tim Cortese. When it's in the approved state, we'll have it again go back to the person who originally submitted the form, so the owner, and same thing with the rejected state. So we'll have it go to this particular person. Okay, so I think our workflow is pretty much done. We've got all of our states set up. We've got all of our actions set up. We've got all of our different assignments set up correctly. The last thing that we really need to do is go over to our form and build this out as well. So let's start doing that now. The first thing we're going to do is maybe we'll ask the person what their name is. So we'll just have a basic text field here. Let's see, we'll go back into here. Oops. And okay, so we have a field up here, and we'll just call this name. Put name on here. And maybe for this particular form, the person, since they're asking for approval, we'll have them ask for approval to have maybe access to a particular door. So this will be like a card access, door access kind of request form. So we've asked them for their name, but we need to give them some doors that they can choose from. So let's say door, and we'll make it be a drop down. And in the options here, we'll have door 1 and door 2 and door 3. Okay. Door 1, and let's see, door 2 and door 3 here. Okay, so we've got our form built out, we've got our flow built out, but for the most part, at this point, it doesn't actually do anything because we haven't actually instantiated it anywhere. There's no groups that can actually have access to this thing. So let's go into our groups. And let's go into our default group here, and let's go into our workflow instances. So right now, our default group doesn't have any workflow instances. So let's fix that. Let's add a new one here. So you'll notice that we only have one workflow here. So we're going to instantiate that example approval workflow, and we'll give it the same name in our instantiation workflow, and we'll give it a slug example workflow. Okay. Save that, and let's hop into here. Let's get everything set up correctly. That looks okay. But we do need to actually tell it what our initial state is. So we're going to go ahead and pick our origin state. And this is just how it knows where we're going to enter this thing. And we're entering at the origin. We could actually suppress the emails that are sent associated with this workflow, but let's go ahead and leave those on by default. All right, save, and let's go ahead and visit this thing. Okay. So here we are in this example approval workflow, very, very basic form. We're asking for the person's name. So I'll go ahead and fill out my name, Tim Cortese, and we're asking for the door. And so we have door 1, door 2, and door 3. So let's go ahead and say, yep, I want to have access to door 3. So I'll go ahead and submit this. And okay, so I've submitted the form, and what are we looking at now? Well, we're looking at a basic report that shows all of the actions that have taken place so far on this particular workflow. So way down here, we see in our history, Tim Cortese submitted this thing. It started in the origin state, and then it moved to the pending approval state, which is where it is now, which is why we're in the pending approval state. Now, it just so happens that it's currently assigned to Tim Cortese, which is, of course, me. Now, that's because we specifically said in the pending approval state when we were defining the workflow that Tim Cortese is also the person who just happens to be the person who can either approve or reject these things. And those were the two actions that we had defined there. You'll also notice, though, that if I'm just browsing along in Graphene here, and I'm maybe looking at some pages, this little bell up here has a number associated with it. So if I go ahead and click on that bell, you can see that I now have my workflows in here, which is the workflow that I submitted, and I can click on that, and it'll take me back into here. But I also have an assignment in here. So because I was the person who is now required to take action on this, the reason that there's a number 1 here is because I actually have to take action on this particular workflow. It's been assigned to me. Also, similarly, a number of emails have gone out right now, and we can take a look at those real quick. So you'll notice that I've got an email saying you've been assigned the example approval workflow email, and similarly, so this is the email that went out, and it's telling me that I need to take action. And I can go ahead and click on the link here as well, and I can see what that looks like. All right, let's see if I can close this out here. Okay, so there's a number of different notifications in here. There's a notification obviously up here telling me to do something. There's also notifications and emails that are going out telling me what to do. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's go ahead and click on that thing, and let's reject it. Okay, so maybe we don't want Tim Cortese to have access to door number 3. So we'll say no. You can only access door 1 and door 2. I don't know why we would say that, but let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now over here in our history, we see it was rejected by Tim Cortese. It went from the pending approval state to that rejected state, and it's currently closed, right? Because we made rejected be a closed state, and the comment here says no, you can only access door 1 and door 2. So I'll say okay, I'm I screwed up in my request and I'm going to go ahead and resubmit it. So I'll say, okay, yeah, I did actually ask for door number 3, but maybe now I only want door number 2, or door number 1 rather. So I'll say, sorry about that. How about door 1? Okay, so we'll go ahead and submit this. All right, so now we've got another state up here, and so you can see here the data is changing over time. So we're starting with door number 3 in that original submission, and then up here now the request is asking for door number 1. So that's what the current state of the data looks like. And same here in this report, we're looking at door number 1. So this time we'll go ahead, and you'll notice that I got the bell up here again. I have an assignment here because I'm the person who has to approve these things in this state, and I'll say, okay, go ahead and approve. Looks good now. Thanks. All right, so we'll submit that. And now we are finally in this approved state. Now there's no actions in the approved state. The thing is closed and it's been approved. And you'll notice that the bell has stopped ringing here because nobody has any assignments left on this thing. We effectively have your workflows, but I really don't need to take any action at this particular time. So we've concluded the workflow. We've got that done. And again, if I were to hop into my email, I'm going to see a whole bunch of messages in here telling me that things needed to happen. So it had been closed and it was rejected. Here's the messages in here. No, you can't access door 1 and door 2. Then it said it was resubmitted. Sorry about that. How about door 1? So you'll see that emails are automatically being generated here on the fly to handle all of these notifications. Okay, so that's pretty much it for basic workflow functionality. We were able to build a workflow, we were able to instantiate a workflow, and we were able to go through the whole process of submitting a workflow. And that's pretty much all we're going to cover for today. Thanks.